Johnny Dollar.
Johnny, this is Len Walker at Surety Mutual Insurance.
Out there in the wild and golden west?
Yep. Still holding down a desk out here in San Francisco.
How are you, Len? What goes these days?
Goes off is more like it, Johnny.
Oh, what's that supposed to mean?
3 neat, tidy little explosions that have cost us well over $1 million apiece.
Wow. What kind of explosions, Len?
Rocket fuel type of stuff.
Oh?
Yeah.
Where?
The Bascom Development Company. It's hidden away along the coast a few miles south.
Bascom, hmm?
So if you want to grab your spacesuit and pop on out here, well, who knows? Maybe they'll oblige by sending you a loft on their next blow-up.
You make it sound very attractive, Len.
I'll tell you this, Johnny. If you can find out the why of this and put a stop to it, we'll pay you enough to let you fly high and wide and handsome for a long time to come.
Now you do make it sound attractive.
Well, then?
Okay. I'll start practicing on the first plane I can get.
The CBS Radio Network brings you Mandel Kramer in the exciting adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Surety Mutual Insurance Company, San Francisco office. Following is an account of expenses incurred during my investigation of the top secret matter. Expense account item 1, $199.27. That covers a taxi out to Bradley Field, the hop to New York, and from there a one-stop flight on out to the West Coast. At New York International, I thought I was the last one aboard before takeoff. But just as the big jet started taxiing out to the runway, a well-dressed gentleman with a well-stuffed briefcase plunking into the seat beside me.
Well, looks as though I just made it.
By the skin of your teeth, and you better fasten your seatbelt because... Hey, George!
What? Why, it's Johnny Dollar.
In person?
Well, this is an unexpected pleasure.
Well, how's the prosperous businessman?
Just fine, and you?
Couldn't be better. You on your way out to the coast, too?
No, just going as far as Chicago to our main plant and office. Oh, it's been a long time, Johnny.
It sure has. Tell me, are you still a vice president of that big chemical outfit?
I certainly am.
Oh, that's good. You're just the man I want to talk to. I want to ask some questions.
Oh? Why?
Hasn't your company got a hand, like all the others, in the liquid rocket fuel racket?
Certainly has. Or I should say had.
Hmm?
Well, right now we're in the process of trying to turn down a contract.
No kidding. Well, how come? Well?
Well, I shouldn't have mentioned it.
Oh, top secret?
No, not quite. Not exactly top secret. As a matter of fact, it'll hit all the papers in just a few days now, so if you want to find out what it's all about... But now, wait.
Yeah?
Didn't you used to have a top security clearance?
I still have, from OSI, CIA, CIC. You want to see my credentials?
Why not?
Okay. Anything to get you off this big mysterioso kick? Here, and here. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what's the big secret that's about to hit the headlines?
A new solid rocket fuel.
Well, I thought a lot of companies were working on that. Had even developed some of it.
They are and they have. But, Johnny, we now have a radically different one that was developed in our place through sheer luck.
How do you mean?
Well, there's a young East German fellow, a scientist. I don't even remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, he has enough degrees in chemistry from European universities to choke a horse.
Yeah?
Came to us for just a run-of-the-mill job in one of our labs. But a few months ago, entirely on his own, he came up with this solid fuel formula, handed it over to the company lock, stock, and barrel. Big boys checked it. Now, thanks to him,